Hello and welcome to another episode of the Climate Economy from the Hindu. I'm Kunal Shankar. In this episode, we revisit a topic that we addressed in the waning weeks of Delhi's winter, the city's almost unlivable air quality. If you recall, my colleague Saptaparno Ghosh had laid out in detail its catastrophic effects on the economy. Delhi's decades long struggle with air pollution has led to a string of policy interventions and emergency responses, some bold, some controversial. From the 2016 rollout of the odd even vehicle rationing scheme to curb peak pollution traffic to the imposition of firecracker bans and crop stubble burning deterrents in neighboring states, India's capital has often been the crucible for experimental environmental governance. Yet, despite these efforts, Delhi consistently ranks among the world's most polluted cities. In early 2025, it recorded the highest annual particulate matter 2.5 concentration among global megacities, overtaking Lahore and Dhaka as per IQ Air's latest report. Within the worsening climate context, the Commission for Air Quality Management introduced its most sweeping policy yet, a ban on refueling overage petrol and diesel vehicles, effectively removing them from circulation. The idea was to tackle a long standing contributor to vehicular pollution by targeting end of life vehicles, that is, over 10 years for diesel and 15 years for petrol. But the move has now been paused until November of this year, following a public outcry. Protests erupted over sudden implementation, collapsing resale values of vehicles, and the economic burden placed on middle and working class vehicle owners. Critics argue, however, that while the pause may offer political respite, it is short sighted and in the face of mounting health and climate risks. Studies estimate that air pollution slashes Delhi's GDP by up to 1.7% annually, primarily due to lost labor productivity, increased healthcare costs, and premature mortality. The cost of inaction, many warn, far outweighs the immediate disruption caused by policies like the vehicle ban. As Delhi navigates the climate economy, the question remains, can it afford to delay the hard decisions that a cleaner, more resilient future demands? To discuss this, I'm joined by senior journalist Chetan Bhattacharji, who has been tracking the twists and turns of Delhi's predicament in tackling air pollution. Chetan, thank you for speaking to the climate economy and welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Kunal.
Yeah, great to have you back. I think we're talking again after last year's COP, so wonderful. I wondered if we could begin by talking a little bit firstly about what prompted Chief Minister Rekha Gupta's government to attempt such a bold move.
It seems, I think that was a welcome move by the government and the CAQM, both the enforcement agency, that they were determined to get this done. And I think pretty soon after they were sworn in mid-Feb, they were quite determined to see this through. And I think it was one of those things which was the groundwork had been laid, the technology was there, the backing of the various courts and the government was there. So everything was in line, and it just needed to be enforced. It just needed to be rolled out, and this could have been seen as an early win. But I think eventually, what happened on the 1st and the 2nd of July took a lot of people by surprise. The sheer anger and protests against it.
Right. No, I mean, I can imagine because the sheer scale of something like this, Delhi by far has the most number of vehicles in the country, and the sheer size of the city, it's one of the world's largest cities. So, and one of the highest per capita ownership of vehicles as well. So, it's only expected that this exercise would be a massive exercise. One of the things that's been pointed out is how these automated registration number plates reading was faulty, or that the whole rule was implemented a little too soon, or wasn't that Delhiites weren't given enough of a time span to really reckon with it. If all of those were issues, I mean, and going by what you just said, why implement it just yet? Like, why not? I mean, in all likelihood, it's probably a great scheme, but why not maybe stagger it? Why not maybe do it in a different way?
That's a great question, and there's actually a lot to unpack over there. I think the first starting point is this ANPR camera system. This has been in place, it was developed over the last couple of years, and it has been in place in trials since, I think, December. And there hasn't been a problem, or at least one that has been reported. In fact, the Delhi government had backed it and announced it. The minister had announced it quite proudly, saying that we were going to roll this out by the end of March. Of course, it took a bit more time than that. And even after his letter, I think it was on the 3rd of July, where he listed several complaints about it, saying that there are problems in the sensors, in the placement, in the integration with the database and all that. The CAQM, the enforcement agency, yesterday turned around and said, but A, this is the responsibility of all the local governments, so the Delhi governments, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, and B, the concerned departments were involved in various meetings. So effectively saying that it's too late to come up to cite problems with it. We've had all this time, and the test seem to have been running absolutely fine. Now, coming to the other issue that you raised, that it may be a good policy, but why push it out in a rush? According to all that we know, and there's been a lot of churn in this in the last few days, it doesn't seem to have been in a rush. It seems to be in a careful, considered rollout of an enforcement program. It was the first enforcement program at such a high-profile scale, which tackled pollution at source. That's a very important thing, because a lot of the action that we see is not pollution at source. It's just to control or subdue the pollution, not stop the pollution, right? So. It was a very carefully thought out policy. It had political backing, it had legal backing, it had the scientific, technical, all the bases were covered. So I think they were taken by surprise by the ferocity of it, and the fact that it was across the political spectrum. You had from the opposition to supporters of the party in power. The attack was from all sides. So I think they resorted to this sort of face saver that there's a problem with the camera, so let's postpone it. The CAQM now seems to have accepted that, at least saying, okay, we'll use that to delay it and just carry out tests until then, until the 1st of November.
I see. So, like, the automated number plate registration appears to be the fall guy, really. Right. Okay. So, if that is the case, what's the likelihood that it can be implemented effectively in November? I mean, why November? That doesn't seem to. I mean, if it isn't going well now.
Well, November only because, if I recall correctly, that is when the next phase of the vehicle ban was going to be rolled out anyway, which was in the neighboring states, Noida, Gurgaon, and the others. And then by the 1st of April, it was going to be rolled out in all of NCR, whatever 20 plus districts that there are there. So I think it's just making best of a bad situation and saying that we already had a timeline. Let's pause. Let's regroup, let's tackle this and restart on the 1st. The important thing is that the CAQM has stood its ground, it's shown some spine, and has said that we are going to continue with it. Now, the issue that a lot of people are raising is that, is it actually 61 lakh cars? Or, sorry, 61 lakh vehicles? Or is it far less? Because if it's far less, then is it going to be that serious a political problem? Or that serious, that many people will be affected. And I think the data is still to be ascertained. And remember that in the trials, the CAQM, if I remember the figure correctly, identified something like almost 5 lakh cars, but 5 lakh vehicles which were overage. But some of them, many of them, may have been duplicates. They were not unique numbers. Now that data needs to be sifted through so you can get a fair sense of just how many, just how few overage vehicles they actually are.
I see. Okay. Oh, so that's interesting. So there is data disparity which might actually bring down the numbers from what it appears to be at least reported. So a couple of things that you pointed out. Contrary to what has been reported, it seems to have been a well thought out program. It's had a protracted time frame. as you said, over a couple of years of implementation, even this number plate registration system to be installed and everything. Can you tell us a little bit about what it means to, what's the significance of pausing this? I mean, Delhi is by far the one of the most polluted cities. Its air quality is unlivable. How significant is it? How detrimental is it to the environment and to the economy, really?
Quite. So let's see. Let's take it back. So let's take a step back and see where we are. It's 2025. In 2014, if I recall correctly, the WHO listed Delhi as more polluted than Beijing. That was a shock to a lot of us. Since then, the government has tried, or various governments, various agencies have tried various things. The needle really hasn't moved. For the last several years, Delhi has averaged PM 2.5 at about 100 micrograms per cubic meter. It hasn't really budged, plus minus a little bit, right?
Way much higher than actual livable quality.
Actually, exactly. In November, it goes up to 300, 400 micrograms, which is just unbelievable. I think the peak last year was about 730 micrograms on one particular day.
Right.
So the importance of this is that what we saw was a long, protracted rollout, not just of the technical aspect, but of the legal and the political side, which is extremely important, because if there's anybody who can actually cut or reduce air pollution, it's going to be the political executive, and it's going to be the courts, right? So these two branches of government had thrown their weight behind this. The pause on the 3rd of July put that entire thing in jeopardy. It was a matter of whether there would be, it would signal political intent, it would signal administrative spine. And as things stand now, at least the enforcement agency has said, we stand by this, we are committed to this, we will roll it out. The political executive seems to have got some, the government seems to have got some sort of cold feet temporarily. Maybe the next 3-4 months, 3.5-4 months, they're going to try and contain that, get accurate data on just how many people will be affected, what they can do to help them, because we can't be oblivious to their concerns also, to both the political concerns and the concerns of the citizens. So they might work out something. So that part, going back to your earlier question, might have been done in a bit of a hurry, that, it's not 61 lakhs, maybe it's only 1 lakh.
So I'm going to, a couple of questions as follow-up. One is that if it is so few vehicles, I mean, or far less than what's been estimated, it might appear as if it's not enough that is being done. Far more needs to be done to actually counter pollution at source, as you said, pointed out. The other is, could the government have thought through this? I mean, because one of the things that it has been made out to be is that this is it's highlighted a class divide, right? Like, those who've been impacted largely are working class and middle class folks who've had vehicles for 10 or 15 years, who probably cannot afford to just go ahead and buy another one or switch out the one that they have. So could the government have looked at, I don't know, I mean, maybe ways to compensate? Maybe could there have been subsidies? I mean, to switch to electric vehicles, say, for folks who have more than 15-year-old diesel trucks, or 10-year-old 15-year-old two-wheelers which are petrol and things like that, which already have some subsidy if it's EV, something like that. Why didn't the government think of that?
Yeah, I think that's really worth looking at, because both the current BJP government and the previous AAV government, the Delhi government has been evolving a pretty good EV policy, especially for two-wheelers, especially for small transport vehicles. So maybe there could have been some kind of fit over there. Right? Maybe that part of the homework should have been better, and maybe now in the next 3 months, 3.5 months, they will tackle that. Because, like I said, it might be easier, and as you're indicating also, to help those people, a few people, with subsidies. Subsidies for two-wheelers, or subsidies for three-wheelers, or mini trucks. I suspect there might be very few car owners in those also. Some of them, like we saw in the whole protests, in the social media protests, might be owners of high-end luxury vehicles. Do they need subsidies? Maybe not. So,
Right.
so realistically speaking, the damage could be, or the fallout could have been, in realistically far less than what we saw last week.
Right. So if we sort of address these particularly the concerns of lower income groups, that's one. So uh, do we do so? I'm assuming you're hopeful. You're a resident of Delhi. You've seen the city really go through this process in the decades or so. You're hopeful that the people would come around and the government might actually come up with something more modified by November.
The signs are that the government is working out some kind of solutions. It's probably likely to be more in terms of some kind of acceptable solutions, political face savers, and so on and so forth. But to my mind, I think what the CAQM has done and what the government has also, government courts, CAQM, they've all done together is demonstrate a kind of political will, administrative action that has been lacking in air pollution control measures for all these years. Yes, there has been a lot, but a lot of it has been one step forward, two steps back. Now think of it this way: if this ban is enforced, then there are a lot of other things which can be enforced. The stubble burning has been banned on paper for a long time. Firecrackers have been banned in Delhi at least for a long time. Both these bans pretty much go up in smoke every year.
Yeah.
We've also seen talk, as the Hindu has been covering admirably, the whole possible rollback on the excellent 2015 policy to cut emissions from coal power plants. What will it mean for that? It brings
Right.
all this under scrutiny. Now, air pollution is not just a one-pronged fight. It's not just going to be vehicle bans. A lot of the criticism has been, you're doing this, but what about X, Y, Z? Sure, those are also a problem. Industry, waste burning, crop burning, and all that kind of thing. But air pollution requires a multi-pronged approach, many things at the same time, and this
Yes.
will help. This is one of those things that just needs to be done. It's not a perfect
Right.
ban. It's not a perfect policy. There are many gaps in it, and
Yeah.
hopefully in the coming years, those gaps will be addressed. Like for instance, the pollution under check, the PUC certificates that every car is supposed to get every few months. They are ineffective. They don't measure for the pollution that really affects us, like PM 2.5 or nitrogen oxides.
Right, and it looks like there's some idea mooted that maybe the pollution checks could be done, and maybe if vehicles can be reworked, even if they are 15 years older, to sort of come within the Bharat Stage 4 or the latest emission controls, and that's a possibility. We might even see that happening, I think.
Um, Technically, as I understand it, now that's been one of the protests that, check my vehicle, it's as clean as it can be, it's not polluting. One Mercedes owner even said that it was his car, 16-year-old car, was zero pollution. But as I understand it, technically, the standards, the emissions come down drastically with each fuel standard. So BS3 was cleaner than BS2, BS4 was way cleaner than BS3 and BS2, and BS6 is something like 6 times or 5 times cleaner than BS4 and about 10 times cleaner than BS2 and 3. There is no way, as I understand it, as has been explained to me, that emissions from BS2, BS3, BS4 will ever be as good as BS6. So if BS6 is going to be your filter, your accepting thing, most older cars are likely to fail.
Right. Okay. Um, Lastly, maybe as a Delhi resident, tell us what you do. Just what everybody has a sort of a, I almost call it a Delhi story during winters, and in times of pollution. How do you cope with it? Do you leave town? Because many people now leave town. Some people actually have air purifiers at homes. We have discussed a possible story of how to, if we can quantify the sheer number of air purifiers that Delhiites are now buying. What do you do, and what are you hearing other people doing?
See, I think the luckiest ones who can afford to get out of the city for a few weeks, for a few months, they do that. But a lot of us have jobs, or they have, or children or students, whatever. There's a lot of attachment to your life in Delhi, but that's still a minority, the elite minority who can afford to do that. Personally speaking, yes, we have air purifiers and we start cleaning them and getting them, ready for use, and shut the windows for months on end, that kind of thing. But the problem is that most people, the majority of people in Delhi, policemen on the streets, daily wage earners, municipal workers, people who can't afford their own private cars and turn the AC on right through winter,
Right.
they will suffer. They do suffer. And there was an excellent survey which was done, I think, about a year or two ago by Chetan, where they found that people know about lower income groups know about air pollution. They know that every time there's high air pollution, they have to miss work. They lose a day's wages. They have to go to the hospital or takes one of their relatives to the hospital. So net, they lose money, they lose productivity, and their health takes a beating, right? But they're aware of it, but they don't know the technicalities. What is PM 2.5? What is AQI? So there is some level of awareness, but I think a greater level of awareness needs to be made or to help most people take as many steps as they can to protect themselves.
Great, fantastic. I think that's all we have. Those are the questions I have. If you have some closing thoughts, that would be good. If not, we can wrap this up.
Yeah, I think the main focus, very quickly, has to be a very sharp focus on health, because as study after study, and I think recently even the Union Minister, Mr. Nitin Gadkari, said this does take a beating on our health. In Delhi, it reduces the span of our lifespans. It's another recent report linked it to cancer, that the higher the air pollution, the more the genetic mutations which tend towards cancer. Right? Air pollution is linked to dozens and dozens of diseases, as has been well documented. So keep the focus on health. And I think from that point of view, from a policy point of view, then a lot of things will start falling into place. I think a lot of the documentation we've seen recently from the government, very little of it actually mentions health, the health effects.
So that correlation might actually be a strong way to implement these policies. Great, Chetan, thank you so much for making time and for coming on this show. And that's all we have for this episode of the Climate Economy. Thank you.
Pleasure talking to you. Thanks.
And that's all we have on this episode of the Climate Economy. If you like this video and would like to know more about how climate change is reshaping our economies, do hit the bell icon on the Hindu's YouTube channel and do write to us, or better still, send us a video recording of your questions to climateeconomy@thehindu.co.in. We'll do our best to feature them and to get them answered. Bye for now.